The moment it happened, the moment my husband Elias spoke those 6 low, guttural words in Korean to his mother, I didn't understand the language, but I understood the sound of finality. I understood the language of guilt. And I knew, with the kind of primal certainty that bypasses reason, that my life was over. If you're watching this, you've probably seen the title. My name is Clara, I'm 30, and until 2 weeks ago, I thought I was living a perfect life. I had the career, the beautiful house in Seattle, and the handsome, successful husband. But my husband, Elias, had a secret, a heavy, shameful secret, and he used his cultural shield, his mother's native Korean, to protect himself from my understanding. It was a shield he trusted implicitly, believing his wife was too ignorant to ever penetrate it. 6 words, spoken softly in a language I didn't speak, were enough to shatter my marriage, end my 15-year friendship, and send 2 families into absolute chaos. He thought I'd never know. He was wrong. Elias and I were the perfect power couple. 7 years together, 2 years married. He was 32, a brilliant finance executive with roots in Korea, and I was climbing the corporate ladder in marketing. Our home was everything we had worked for, light, modern, and always smelling faintly of Aesop. The only recurring stress point was his mother, Mrs. Kim. She was an absolute force of nature, traditional, fiercely proud, and deeply concerned with face and lineage. She tolerated me, the American daughter-in-law, but always kept me at a formal distance, often reverting to rapid-fire Korean with Elias during dinners, leaving me smiling politely into my wine glass, feeling like an interloper. That language barrier was the wall he hid behind. My best friend, Sarah, was the only other constant. We'd been inseparable since middle school. She was my confidant, my emergency contact, my human diary. She knew every detail of my life, including the quiet, desperate struggle Elias and I had been having to conceive. We were on the cusp of starting the aggressive rounds of fertility treatments. Sarah was our biggest cheerleading, always telling me to stay positive. Looking back, the signs were there. Tiny cracks I dismissed as stress. For the last 6 months, Elias had been distant. He claimed he was overwhelmed with a big deal, staying late at the office, his phone always on silent. Sarah, too, was weirdly off limits. She'd always drop by unannounced, but recently, she needed a formal invitation and was always canceling. If she was around Elias, she was either nervously chatty or painfully quiet, watching him with an intensity that I now recognize as a toxic mix of guilt and desire. I remember one specific moment, 3 months ago, when Elias helped her move a massive piece of furniture. They looked at each other afterward, catching their breath, and the air between them was so thick it felt weighted. I joked, "Wow, you two are getting coordinated." And they both flinched. I shook it off. We were family. They were friends. Right. The night of the confession was Mrs. Kim's 60th birthday dinner. It had to be perfect. The atmosphere was stiff from the start. We made polite small talk, in English, thankfully, until we got to the inevitable subject. "Clara," Mrs. Kim announced, setting down her fork, her voice perfectly level, "we must discuss the future. The fertility doctor. When is the next appointment? Elias is my only son, and the family name requires continuation. We cannot delay this any longer." I felt the familiar heat rise in my cheeks. "Mrs. Kim, we have an appointment next week to discuss the IVF schedule. We are moving forward, I promise." Elias, who had been silent, shifted uncomfortably. He didn't meet my eyes. He looked tired, weighed down. A few minutes later, Mrs. Kim abruptly pushed back her chair. "Elias, come here. We must discuss the legal ownership of the sole property now. The tax implications are urgent." The change was immediate. They retreated to the far corner of the living room, near the cold fireplace. I was left alone at the large, empty dining table, watching the performance unfold. They didn't even pretend to look at documents. Mrs. Kim was talking fast, low, and viciously, her face a mask of escalating anger. Elias was hunched, his arms wrapped around himself defensively. This went on for what felt like an eternity. 5 minutes of tense, private, foreign conversation designed to exclude me. At one point, Mrs. Kim stopped talking and simply pointed at me, still sitting at the table, and let out a stream of rapid, harsh syllables. Elias shook his head, looking miserable. He was clearly trying to argue or justify something, but his mother wasn't having it. Her agitation was less financial and more personal disaster. Then Mrs. Kim put her hand on Elias's shoulder, leaned in close, and spoke to him almost in a hiss. Her face was inches from his. He closed his eyes, took a deep, shuddering breath, a signal of surrender, and then opened them, turning his head slightly toward me, as if ensuring I was still in my isolated bubble. He spoke. 6 words. The tone was hushed, yet resonant. It was a complete sentence, a definitive statement. In the middle of that phrase, my ears snagged on those 2 phonemes that tore through my practiced ignorance. I'm Sin. And then, the sound that made my heart stop. Chingu. Elias had finished speaking. Mrs. Kim's head snapped back. Her eyes, wide with disbelief and horror, first darted to Elias, then immediately fixed on me. Her expression changed from fury at her son to a deep, profound, cold pity for me. The fool who didn't know. She let out a silent, sharp gasp, exhaling the sound of utter defeat. Egu. I rose from the table, my legs shaky, feeling a cold, wet certainty spread through me. Elias. I asked you what was going on. What did you just say? He wheeled around, forcing a nervous smile. Clara. Nothing. I told you. My mother is panicking about the property deed. She thinks she's going to lose it. It's nothing that concerns you. Taxes don't use the word I'm Sin. Elias. I whispered, my voice flat. What does that word mean? Tell me now. His panic became pure aggression. Stop being so paranoid. You're making this up. You heard nothing. You are being hysterical, Clara. Drop it. Mrs. Kim, maintaining a chilling, perfect composure, quickly intervened. She smoothed her silk dress, gave Elias a stern look that clearly meant shut up, and addressed me with an unnerving calm. Clara. It is settled. Thank you for the dinner. We will speak again. She walked out the door with frightening dignity, leaving Elias scrambling to apologize for his stress and my overreaction. I simply retreated to the guest room, my mind already operating on pure, cold logic. I knew I needed to break the code. I didn't sleep a wink that night. Elias tried knocking on the guest room door once, whispering, I love you, before giving up and going to the master bedroom. I listened for the click of his breathing, the sure sign he was asleep. Then I was up. I sat at my laptop, staring at the dictionary interface. I typed every phonetic permutation I could remember. I had heard the 2 key sounds clearly. Imsin. The search results returned only one relevant word, Imsin, I'm Sin, meaning pregnancy. The air left my lungs in a silent whoosh. I felt like I was plunging into a frozen lake. Pregnancy. But my best friend. My husband. The sheer cruelty of the situation. Confessing a pregnancy outside our marriage to his mother, who constantly pressured us to conceive, and doing it in a language he knew I wouldn't understand, was beyond comprehension. He wasn't just cheating. He was strategically leveraging the language barrier to manage a crisis behind my back. I moved on to the second word, Chingu. The search was conclusive, Chingu, meaning friend. I combined them, using the context of Mrs. Kim's look of disgust and Elias's shame. I crafted the most likely sentence, focusing on the conversational flow I'd heard. Dangsinyu Ayadulai Imsin Sikyosio. Your son got her pregnant. I fed a close approximation of the 6 words into a translation tool. The screen flashed the devastating phrase, he got your best friend pregnant. I spent the rest of the night sifting through digital evidence. I checked our joint account. Nothing obvious, but several recurring Venmo payments from Elias to Sarah, labeled innocuously as furniture help or dinner reimbursement. But the payments were larger than they should have been. The truly damning evidence came from Sarah's social media and my own memory. She'd always been a slender woman, but in her recent photos, she was favoring flowy dresses and strategically angled selfies. I remembered her canceling our weekly yoga session 4 months ago, claiming a bad back. Then, I remembered seeing a prescription bottle for prenatal vitamins in her bathroom cabinet when I visited last month, which she quickly snatched away, saying they were for a severe iron deficiency. I had believed her. I drove to Sarah's apartment at 10 a.m. without calling. I didn't want to give her time to compose herself. When she opened the door, she looked exactly as I felt, hollowed out. She was wearing a baggy college sweatshirt and sweatpants. Clara? What are you? I stepped past her, my eyes immediately catching the sight of a large, framed baby sonogram image, face down on her coffee table. I walked over, my movements slow and deliberate, and picked it up. A tiny, perfect human form, dated 3 months ago. I didn't scream. I just held the image and looked at her. I know, Sarah, I said, my voice quiet, almost mournful. I know about the baby. I know about Elias. And I know about the Korean. He told his mother everything, thinking I would never piece it together. Tell me the truth. When? How? Sarah dissolved. She covered her face, sinking onto the sofa and rocking. Oh God, Clara. Please forgive me. It was only twice. It was last fall. I was so lonely, Elias was so stressed about the family pressure, and we were both drinking. I swear it was an accident. But the second time, I got pregnant. I didn't know until Christmas. And you decided to keep it? Knowing it would destroy me? Knowing I was gearing up for expensive IVF to have his baby? My voice finally cracked, sounding raw and foreign to my own ears. Elias said, he said he would take care of it, she sobbed. He said this was his mother's grandchild, a way to make her happy, and he would figure out how to tell you eventually. He promised he would manage it. I'm 5 months pregnant, Clara. He was paying for my appointments, keeping me hidden until the second trimester was complete. The logic was staggering in its cold, calculated cruelty. Elias had found a solution to his mother's demands, a baby born from an illicit affair with my best friend, and planned to present it to me as a non-negotiable fait accompli, thinking my love and loyalty would force me to accept it. He hadn't told his mother because he was scared of her disappointment. He told her because he needed her political support against me. I dropped the sonogram picture back on the table. The image was beautiful, but it was tainted. You are no longer my friend, Sarah. You are a biological complication. And Elias is no longer my husband. This is over. I hope you two have a miserable life together. I walked out, leaving her to her tears and her terrible decision. The moment I left Sarah's apartment, my emotional breakdown was delayed, replaced by a crystalline focus. I drove straight to Evelyn, my lawyer. I explained the Korean phrase, the sonogram, the bank transfers, and my husband's use of the language barrier as a manipulative tool. Evelyn was impressed by my meticulous evidence gathering. Clara, this is a massive breach of marital trust, and his deceit is egregious. We are going to hit him hard. But before we file, we need leverage. We need him to fully expose himself to his mother, to lose face completely. I agreed to her plan. I acted normal for 2 days, telling Elias I needed to talk about Sarah, because she was going through a tough time. I then emailed Mrs. Kim again, using the language of high finance and urgent family stability, insisting she attend the meeting for Elias's sake. The final confrontation took place in our living room, the site of the original crime. Mrs. Kim looked guarded. Elias looked hopeful. He thought I was going to cry, forgive, and accept the situation. I sat down, calm and collected, with a large, heavy briefcase on the floor beside me. Thank you both for coming, I said, my voice steady. We are here to discuss what Elias told you on Tuesday night. Elias immediately tried to interrupt. Honey, I told you, I was stressed about the... I cut him off, making direct eye contact. I know what you said, Elias. And I know exactly what Imsen and Chingu mean. I know Sarah is 5 months pregnant, and I know you were keeping her appointments secret using money from our joint account. Elias went white. Clara, you don't know what you're saying. You misunderstood. Mrs. Kim, seeing the complete collapse of her son's lie, immediately reverted to the cultural shield, her only weapon. She spoke rapidly in Korean, addressing Elias, trying to manage the public relations disaster of the confession. Why would you be so foolish? You were supposed to manage this. Now she has evidence. You have disgraced the family name, Elias. What kind of son does this? She hissed, her anger directed entirely at his incompetence, not his infidelity. She turned to me, her face hardening into a denial. Clara, my son is under pressure. This is a private matter. We will discuss this. I slammed my hand down on the coffee table. The sound was sharp, shocking them both into silence. I looked at Mrs. Kim, then at Elias, whose mouth was agape in terror. I spoke the 6 words that had haunted my soul. The words I had practiced until the unfamiliar sounds felt like acid on my tongue. I spoke them loudly, clearly, with the exact, devastating finality Elias had used. Dangsanui adulai je gialchinul imsin sikiosio. Mrs. Kim gasped, physically jolting back into the sofa. The shock of hearing the secret language of her shame spoken by the American outsider paralyzed her. Her expression was a terrifying mix of betrayal, loss of control, and grudging, awful respect. Elias lunged forward, trying to grab my knees. Please, Clara. Don't do this. I love you. It's just a baby. We can raise it. We can still have our life. This was just a horrible, desperate mistake. It wasn't a mistake, Elias, I said, calm in the face of his panic. A mistake is using the wrong spice. This was a calculated, prolonged betrayal, compounded by your cowardice in hiding behind your mother's language. I am not hysterical. I am clear-headed. I reached into the briefcase and pulled out the divorce papers, the property deed transfers, and the frozen bank account notices. I placed them gently on the table. Evelyn has the final documents. I want you to sign these papers uncontested. You get your car and your personal effects. I keep the house and the majority of the investments you jeopardized with your mistake. You have until tomorrow morning to be out. Your signature now saves you from a humiliating, drawn-out legal fight where I will expose every single detail, including the deliberate deception under the guise of cultural privacy. Sign them. Mrs. Kim, the ultimate pragmatist, leaned forward and scanned the financial details. She saw the total loss of face and assets her son was facing. She looked at him with profound disappointment. Elias, she commanded, her voice cold steel. Sign the papers. You have dishonored yourself and lost everything. Sign them now. He signed the documents, his hand shaking so violently the pen skated across the page. I stood up, picked up my briefcase, and walked out of the room, leaving the son and his furious mother staring at the ruins of their reputation and my life. Elias moved in with his mother the next day. The divorce was finalized quickly, thanks to my preparedness and Mrs. Kim's desire to contain the scandal and protect the remaining family wealth. I took the house, and I filed an order of protection that prevented Sarah from contacting me. My life was violently scrubbed clean of the 2 people who had meant the most to me. The strangest closure came 3 weeks ago. A small, beautifully wrapped package arrived for me. Inside was a traditional Korean teapot set and a short, formal, handwritten note from Mrs. Kim, mailed from an anonymous post office box. It read, Clara, you responded with the honor my son lacked. He brought shame to the family. You protected yourself with strength. He is weak. You are not. I wish you well in your independent future. I slightly edited the note for continuity. She mentioned securing the grandson's future during the confrontation, so removing it here makes the note more focused on me. It was the ultimate vindication. She didn't approve of the baby's existence, she approved of my decisive exit. Elias didn't lose me because I was the American outsider. He lost me because he was the spineless coward. His mother saw it, and she sided with the strength she saw in me. I'm healing now. I've started a new life in this house, painting over the rooms where the lies were told. I am focusing on my career and learning French, because I'm determined that no man will ever again use a language to make me feel small, excluded, or stupid. My friends, I tell you this story not for pity, but as a warning. Trust your instincts. If a conversation feels wrong, it is wrong. And sometimes, the most dangerous lies are spoken in the most beautiful foreign tongue.